In this video, I'll explain how you can lose body fat for bodybuilding. Now, one of the key goals for a bodybuilder is not only to lose body fat, but it's to retain muscle tissue. But I'm going to teach you step by step how you can lose body fat without losing muscle tissue. Now, the first thing as a bodybuilder is you want to make sure that you're transitioning into a sensible cut from maintenance. You're probably at maintenance at the moment. Maybe you've been bulking for a while. You want to transition into a cut progressively, not too aggressively. So start off with working out your time frame. The longer the better for a bodybuilder. You don't want to try and cut body fat in 6 weeks. You want to have at least 20 weeks, 24 weeks for a cutting phase. That's what I would normally do anyway when I've done bodybuilding preps. So first thing you want to do is get yourself into a small deficit, even sitting around maintenance for a couple of weeks. So work out your calories. If you're not at the moment, work it all out, input your details into MyFitnessPal and put yourself into a small calorie deficit of about 10 or 15%. Now, there's no doubt if you've been bulking for a while, and you could have been bulking for a long time, building muscle. You know, I've been in bulk sometimes for 2 years before I've entered a cut. So there's a lot of change that you're going to have to make within the next 20 weeks, for example. Obviously, the main one is you're going to go from eating high calories, right? Because when you're maintaining or building muscle, you're in a bulk, aren't you? You're eating a lot of calories. So you're not, number one, hungry. And number two, you don't crave food. Number three, you're just probably eating for the sake of it because you're just trying to shovel food down your neck. When you're in a small deficit, it all sort of has to change. You're probably going to be eating low calories. Your portion sizes are getting smaller. You're cutting back on those carbs, dare I say it, but you're cutting back on them. But also as well, you're just having to change your behavior to food. So if you would normally, in your bulk on the weekends, relax, go for some food with friends, not really paying attention to what you're eating, you're keeping it as clean as you can. But again, your body fat is not your priority. So you're just going on the weekends and eating a nice slap up meal and not really paying attention to the calorie breakdown. Maybe you've got your eye on the macros a little bit and you may have some experience with knowing your macros and you can eyeball 50 grams of protein, but the energy that's coming in from the fat and the carbs, you probably don't know what it is. So when you're bulking, that's probably what's happening. So as you're transitioning to a cut, the first couple of weeks, the first 4 weeks, I find you're just changing behaviors slightly, eating a bit less food, maybe not going out as much on the weekends. And if you do go out on the weekends for some food, it's just a cleaner cheat meal, which I normally would do every week. Even when I'm cutting, I do have a cheat meal. I just find it gives me motivation to keep going. So my cheat meal, though, I try to account for it. I track it in MyFitnessPal. And that's the next step that I do, is I start tracking my food. And that's probably what I'd recommend you start doing, is start tracking your food. Because as a bodybuilder, you need to make sure that you're understanding exactly your calories, how much calories you're eating. There's no grey area. Should be, I'm eating 5,000 calories. Oh, it could be 4,000. You can't be in a grey area, so you've got to know exactly how many calories you're consuming. So you're going to start having to track everything. Maybe you weren't doing that before when you were bulking, but now you've got to track more diligently. Can't be any grey area, be black or white. That's what I'm eating. If you're enjoying this type of content, I put out videos every week. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video. So once you start tracking your food, you're then going to have to optimize your macros. Now, as a bodybuilder, you're going to be pretty much eating in a deficit, like I mentioned, but your protein is probably going to be still quite high. You're probably eating at least 1 gram to 1.5 grams of pound of body weight, maybe sometimes even up to 2 grams per pound of body weight. Because again, you're not only going to want to lose fat, but you're wanting to retain muscle tissue as well. So you're going to want to keep your protein very high. So up to 2 grams per pound of body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, then you could even end up eating 350 grams of protein. That's not uncommon for a bodybuilder. But that might be, back end of your maximum amount of protein. Because obviously you then got to optimize your carbs and fats. Now your carbs would be, if you're going to be training very hard as a bodybuilder, you're going to need the fuel. You're going to be probably training at least 5 days split, working every muscle group. to failure and your volume is going to be high. You're probably doing at least 25 to 30 sets per session. MAV is high, maximum adaptable volume. How many sets you need to retain muscle is going to be high. So there's no doubt you're doing 5 sessions a week and your volume of per session is very high. But one thing is you're going to be needing is carbs. So your carbs need to be high. So if you're, let's say, for argument's sake, needing carbs for every workout, which you're probably going to need to do, your carbs need to be at least, I'd say, no doubt, 1.5 gram per pound of body weight. So I mentioned if you're 200 grams, if you're 200 pounds, you're probably going to be at least 300 to 400, 500 grams of carbs per day. That's not uncommon. But if you're not training, what you can do as a bodybuilder is you can pull your carbs lower. You just don't need them, right? If you're not training, you don't need as many carbs. So you can go 1 to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. So you can maybe pull it back by half a gram. So obviously, how can you easily do that on your non-workout days? Well, obviously, you're not going to be training, so you're not going to be eating your pre-workout carbs and your post-workout. So that's going to probably save the bulk of your carbs. And then you can just pull your carbs back a little bit for the rest of the day as well. Eating a little bit less carbs for lunch, purposely eating a little bit less for dinner. Because again, you just don't need as many carbs. Now, also as well for a bodybuilder, you've got to be aware of your third macro, your fats, because fats obviously are the most calories per 9 calories per gram of fat. So you've got to be aware of those hidden calories in certain foods. So if you're eating steak and fatty cuts of meat at the moment, you need to maybe change them to leaner cuts, lean chicken breast. If you're eating chicken thighs, for example, simple swaps. If you're eating quite a bit of salmon, you may need to switch to tuna. So simple swaps that reduce your fat intake. That's what I'm getting at here. So you need to be eating a little bit less fat. So fats probably are the lowest of your percentage of macros. You're probably going to be eating about half a gram per pound of body weight for fats. So maximum 80 to 100 grams of fats per day, for example, you may be aiming for. Because again, that's going to save you calories and it's going to mean that you can get into your calorie deficit and stay there basically and start losing fat. Because as a bodybuilder, your main 2 macros, high protein and carbs, they are going to help you directly retain muscle tissue and basically give you the power and performance for your workouts. Without those 2, if you start slashing those 2, again, you're probably going to be feeling quite lethargic from your workout, so you're not going to be able to have the performance that you need to keep going towards your 20-week goal prep. So keep those macros optimized. That is the next step, and that's the critical step, is macro optimization. All right. So step 1, getting your calories right, getting into a deficit. Step 2, optimizing your macros. So then you go into the third step, which would be your training. So your training has to be really dialed in as a bodybuilder. You're going to have to go from low cardio, which you're probably doing in your bulk, to quite higher cardio. Now, you're not going to do that by radically getting cardio up quickly, running a lot of cardio. You're going to progressively increase your cardio over time. Now, I would recommend working some GBC as well, German body composition. So combining training exercises A1, A2, A3. So A is an exercise. So A1 exercise 1, A2 exercise 2, A3 exercise 3. These can be combined together. And again, these can be great for fat loss because not only are you retaining muscle by lifting weights for the A1, A2, A3, but you're also stimulating your cardio base as well. Your heart rate's working hard. So this can make it a bit more enjoyable. So you can have a couple of sessions doing GBC and a couple of sessions doing your normal split. But what you would need to do is just reduce the volume slightly, so you're not doing as many sets per workout, and then that's going to allow you to do a bit more cardio. All right, so you're probably going to be doing maybe an hour's training session, and 50 minutes of that's going to be weight training, and 10 minutes of that's going to be cardio. But as you get towards your end of your prep, what you're going to be doing is stretching more cardio, mainly steady state, so more walking, more post-workout cardio. So as you get further into your prep, you may hit some plateaus. A couple of things you can do. Obviously, the obvious one is reduce your calories, but I wouldn't recommend that immediately. I'd just start by increasing your cardio. Start off with do a bit more steps, move a bit more, set a bigger step goal, add some more extra cardio to your workout. So try and maximize your cardio before you start lowering your calories. Then if you've done that for a couple of weeks and you start to lose fat again, then we know that's going to be working for you. But if you start to stall again, you can then go into a slightly bigger deficit by pulling a little bit lower on your carbs and fats, but also as well, you can carb cycle. So on your workout days, keep your carbs where they are, but on your non-workout days, pull your carbs much lower. So let's say 1 gram per pound of body weight on your rest days, maybe 1.5 pound per gram of body weight on your workout days. So again, that carb cycle split can stimulate fat loss because you're not eating the carbs when you don't need them, but when you do need the carbs, your training and your performance is then met. So by implementing those methods, you should start now losing fat and be comfortable losing fat on the road to your bodybuilding prep and peaking at around 20 weeks. I hope you found this one helpful. If you did, if you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section, and I wish you all the best of luck. Have a great day. Bye for now.